Welcome to the We Are CC podcast. Thank you for joining, everyone. I'm Tom Crown. And no matter how bad the market is, if you follow our advice, you'll sleep like a baby. And by that, I mean you'll wake up every hour crying. Today, I'm joined by JW Winterm. JW. Our man is heavily invested in tourism, but avoids investing in Egyptian companies because they are often pyramid schemes. Mr. Poppy, our investment analyst, whose wife recently left him. She was losing interest. I hope that's not true. Jared Woodward, who is a big penny stock investor, and he said he made a lot of sense. Mr. Oz is not actually here, but maybe he will be, so he doesn't get a joke. And Mr. who didn't tell me he was coming until late, and we didn't have time to write one. Please make sure you follow us. You can check out our previous podcasts at weareccpodcast.buzzsprout.com. And I think today we have quite a bit to chat about, and we have a full house. So I'm ready, Poppy. What are we getting on first?
Full house indeed. Well, let's start with the usual. Let's look at Bitcoin. Let's look at Ethereum. Let's look at the macro. It's looking pretty good right now, huh?
Better than it has been.
Loving that DXY chart. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dollar for the first time. Can we thank the European Central Bank for finally raising rates? I mean, they really sat on their hands for so long. I didn't think it was ever going to happen.
Well, with the Bitcoin bump, I have a very, very serious question. I need your guys' feedback, input. So my tenant buddy friend paid me like 3 months of rent in Bitcoin. And now I'm like, do I sit on this or do I sell it? I'm seriously asking the question, what do you guys think? Not financial advice, but
Well,
what do
you're
I
going to
do?
have to, I'm no tax professional, but that's still taxable income. So you might want to think about those implications.
Well, of course, like I'm paying taxes on it no matter what, because it's income, but it's like, do I go ahead and take some out now or does it go? Because it's like, this is one of the bad things about the tax situation. It's like, do I liquidate some now and then, or run the risk of I'm already paying taxes on it and then like it goes down in price and I'm paying even more I'm paying taxes on it and it's gone down. It's like just this tax situation makes it such a headache.
Think about the NFL players back at like 65, 69K that were getting their salaries in Bitcoin, man.
Yeah.
No.
Some of those guys got wrecked pretty bad.
Yeah.
I think. Hey, we were all there, man. Sitting at in the 60K range. I thought the moon was the limit. I was feeling it. Now I'm just happy when the wife doesn't ask me about the portfolio.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, no one knows what's going to happen, brother Jared, but you got to do what you're comfortable with. You got to think of the tax man. Yeah, there's no guarantee. Yeah, you might regret it, you might not. I think probably the safest thing is cover your taxes basis and
of course,
everything left over.
Yeah, that's the nightmare of working and operating in crypto land is like having to I do staking as well, and so I've got like regular crypto coming in, and of course that's income, and so it's like you just gotta bite your nails and be like, okay, do I sell as I go or do I hope it's gonna go up?
I think maybe the reasonable thing to do would be, personally, I'm bullish, but I'm always bullish. So if you're feeling kind of optimistic about future price action, I mean, you could just put it on an exchange and set a stop loss at 21,000 or whatever you think is not going to go below, and then you're safe and you got some upside potential.
Yeah, it's fair. That's a nice nuanced approach. I like that.
Our man JW with the answers. I like it very much.
Did we ever get an update on that? Speaking of proof of stake and taxes, and we're not going to talk about taxes because we're not CPAs, but remember that couple had a court case against, I don't know, some jurisdiction about income based on proof of stake. I'd never heard anything else about it.
No, actually, I know a lot about this because I'm from the Tezos community and they're from the Tezos community. And I remember when this came about, actually, one of the founders had reached out to me because back when this was kind of brewing, I'm like, I'd love to help. I want to participate in this. I do staking and stuff. And based on the way I had ran my operation, it wasn't ideal because we were helping like this guy get everything together. I spoke with the lawyer that was helping it out, Abe Sutherland, really awesome guy. And From my understanding, the way the court case went down, of course, like search online and get the real detail or the actual on the ground details. But he won the case like that as an individual. But him as an individual, he won his case. But it doesn't mean that the IRS has changed or updated its laws around that. So it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, it's a hopeful, it's a good sign, but
Precedent.
it hasn't actually changed anything for the moment.
Yeah, for now.
And if you're interested and you want to stay more, I'm going to get you the Twitter handle, but I believe it's the Proof of Stake Alliance, and they're the ones you can follow, or that organization. And they're the ones that are leading.
Yeah. With Ethereum going to proof of stake, this becomes a very, very important topic, probably. I would say, me personally, you were talking about Bitcoin. I'm thinking if I'm bullish right now, and this is just Poppy talking, this isn't, I know some of you guys might feel differently,
I'm
but
bullish. I'm
generally bullish, but I'm more bullish on Ethereum and altcoins right now. And that's something I was talking to you about earlier in the week, Tom Crown, and this is my opinion, but looking at how Bitcoin's dominance has performed over the past, say, six months to a year, and with the narrative around Ethereum, I think at least for the near term is going to continue to be a little bit of a stronger sentiment around some of these altcoin projects.
Well, you say that, and then you look at the last 4 days of dominance. I don't know if you've looked at it in the last 4 days.
Yeah, it's
straight up, only up.
Let's take a look. So you think this recent move might be heavy Bitcoin?
Well, it did breach its 2021 low a few days ago, and it's rocketed pretty much since. I mean, it's it hasn't gone anywhere significant from a chart point of view, but those are some big green candles. So it might just be kind of a bounce there in dominance, but we're seeing Popcorn take some of that back.
Nice. Yeah.
Personally, I think we're gonna. I mean, it seems like you can't have any big news in cryptocurrency world without there being some sell the news that follows. So personally, I kind of think over the next week or two, probably the Bitcoin dominance is going to continue up a little bit and Ethereum will bleed a little bit. I'm not anything long-term, but that's just my feeling for the next couple of weeks.
Well, I know 100% the way the market's going to go, because I'm going to make a decision. Absolutely. I'm going to make a decision, and I'm going to let you guys know. Just do the opposite. You're set. Yes. Yes.
My favorite kind. Well, you bring up a good point, Tom. Looking at ETH BTC, it's dropped 10% over the past, the past week? Not even week. In less than a week, it's dropped 10%. So, yeah, that's looking potentially a little bit toppy there. So you're right. Maybe they're going to rotate out of ETH as part of the merge, at least short term. I'm very curious to see what happens after the merge, which is only days away, guys. Can you believe that the Ethereum
It's been 5
Foundation...
years. It's been 5 years. It's been a year away. It's finally 2 days away.
I've kind of given them a hard time. Like back in 2017, they said they're going to proof of stake, took forever. But even if it did take a while, it's glad to see some progress being made. They're coming to fruition. So good for
it's
them.
funny if you time travel back to 2017. Somebody just said 2017.
Oh yeah,
time travel back to 2017 and ask yourself, what would you envision happening first? Ethereum going proof of stake or Bitcoin ETF? And it's 2022 now. It's like it's 2022.
Wow.
I would have been wrong.
Wow. You just ruined my day thinking about that. But there were some there were some recent comments by Gary Gensler, the SEC, and of course we've said this before. The U.S. isn't, and the U.S. government isn't the only government that matters when it comes to crypto regulation, and this may eventually lead to some division between large countries and economic regions, but it is arguably the most influential. And so the SEC recently made some statements that seem to imply a good bit of support from the SEC in making Ethereum and Bitcoin a commodity, and that Gary and his crew are very interested in chasing down other projects, i.e. securities, because that's what he considers his lane. That did make me more bullish on Bitcoin and Ethereum, but it does leave me a little bit concerned when I think about projects. And one that comes to mind that's very popular right now is Solana, because of how Solana was launched, and because of how some of those VCs are, basically on video saying they dump on people, and there's this other drama with it. I could see that being another target, along with like Ripple and some of the others they've mentioned.
Oh, the reckoning it has to come. We had a whole year of Elon, Inu, Moon, Safe, Rocket, dogs. The reckoning has to come. There's securities everywhere. I'm not going to name what is or what isn't because no one will like my opinion. But it has to. Yeah, these are people like knowingly selling securities or unknowingly, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because at the end of the day, the things that aren't securities are going to stand that test.
Well, what's quote unquote wrong with selling a security like from the SEC?
It's not registered.
And
you got to register. You got to. It's not that securities are bad. It's that unregistered securities are illegal to sell.
Yeah.
So there's criminal penalties associated with
sure. There's not an ethical or moral case behind it. It's the law at the time. At the moment.
Yeah. Yes, but also there is an ethical. Shiba Inu, Moon Safe, Dogelon, Rocket. I think that there are ethical concerns there, and I hate to freaking side. I'm not siding with the SEC, but there is some. There are circumstances where it's definitely.
Oh, there's scams. There's scams.
Oh,
Did you say
Squid Game?
Sure. No, there's scams all over the world, but there's plenty of scams that are quite registered and quite on the line. But the point is, the SEC's got no ground to be to be leading anyone in this.
They got all the ground technically.
They got the guns.
Yeah. They have. They're empowered to do it. You're right. We can always argue up and down the ethics of the SEC and whether or not they have our best interests in mind, but
would we give someone a hard time about smoking weed? It's their choice. Their personal thing. I think that's where we're at on this kind of stuff. And the things the SEC does, we don't count the negative effects. It really stops people from getting in and getting invested, and it really manipulates the market and messes things up. There's a lot of negative sides to this.
For sure. I'm no XRP fan, but the XRP case seems ridiculous to me. At this point, you're 12 years old, 10 years old. Now you're going to prosecute them. It's I feel like wait, and now you're just going to hurt investors when your goal or you're tasked with the goal of protecting them. Doesn't seem
insane. And I've laughed at XRP over the years. Where's your missing 30,000 blocks and everything else like that? But it's at the same time, it's look, you're a big person. You can decide what you want to do with your own money, and you're responsible for that. That's the reality we live in. And these gatekeepers just mess it up, make it worse.
Yeah, true.
It's the reality we'd like to live in, I think.
Well, it is the reality, and the people involved that kind of insinuate themselves don't make it better. We get the illusion of comfort, but it's not going to make things better. In the long run.
I tend to agree with Jared that the free market would be the better solution, but the reality is that they've started enforcement actions against a number of NFTs as well as tokens now, and I think that they've made some noises like they're going to come after even bigger places. Yeah. Not as big as Solana probably, but I think that it's a real open question about how that's going to play out in the next year or so.
I'm totally with you. But what you're also going to see is people working against that as well. You got Bruce Fenton running for senator, and he's got 20 years in Wall Street. He's super familiar with this stuff. He's got he plays the whole registered security game. He worked in that world, but he's also running on basically gutting the SEC because he's also big into crypto and aware of this is horrible and it's not helping.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys heard, there's a certain report coming out this week talking about inflation, CPI report. What are we feeling? Are we thinking that this might be, you think inflation stopped, or do you think maybe we're going to go back up?
It's over. It was transitory.
Oh,
Remember?
thanks,
Wait, no,
Tom
it didn't
Crown.
exist, and now it's over.
We just
and
we just
we're
needed Tom
good.
Crown to call the inflation over.
All we had to do was say it was over, and it was that
Mission
easy.
success.
We
Remember
won.
that?
Well, no, I've been
Bush.
thinking about this. Yeah, if the print comes out tomorrow and it's as expected and it's shows a cool down month to month, so tomorrow is what, the August report, and it's expected to be lower than the July report. I think that's fairly bullish news. That means that the expectations from the market of a 75 bip hike are probably good, and if that's the case, then the market's pricing that in already. So that to me says bullish.
Agreed.
Yeah. If it comes in higher though, oh boy, it's not going to be pretty.
Buckle up,
Rain blood.
volatility.
Yeah, buckle up is an understatement. I think everyone and their uncle at this point is expecting inflation to be showing another reduction. I think it was 8.1 in July or in August or in the last report. So,
actually markets, if we're looking at, I read an article recently about institutional hedging is at like 3 times the rate of like 2008 fall or whatever. In some sense, I think institutions are still very much hedging against these numbers not cooling down and rates continuing to go up and markets continuing to bleed.
Just based on gas prices, though, I feel like the majority, like, it's got to come down, right? I mean, we'll see, but I feel like the evidence you see before your eyes seems like it's cooling down, right?
Yeah, housing market's cooling off. The cost of goods is showing signs of coming down. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to believe it should be coming down. But I'm a little bit fearful, only because it was 2 months ago we were sitting on this podcast feeling the same way. Like I feel like it's going to be, we know what to expect, and then it came in higher, and I felt a little bit rugged.
Well, I bought a GPU, so I'm not helping, or maybe I am.
You're going to be mining with that, sir?
Once it gets cold, yeah, why not? Let's heat the house with some hash power, man.
Yeah, so they're talking, that 75 bip hike, statistically, that is what markets are pricing in. So we'll find out next week. This week will be the CPI report. Next week is when the Fed will meet, and they will let us know their feelings and how much they're going to do for the next hike. It'd be interesting if we do see the Fed can, let's say we do see signs of inflation topping here in the U.S. The Fed can start to kind of temper their hikes. At the same time, the Europeans have to take a more aggressive stance on hikes. I wonder if that would lead to a continued rally for the euro, which would mean, inversely, that the dollar would start to lose value.
Almost definitely, in my opinion.
Yeah, we need more Europeans on this call. We had Oz, but is the UK really part of the EU these days? I don't know. Not really.
No, definitely not. It's not part of the EU anymore.
Yeah, technically no. Yeah, technically.
I think they have some agreements in place. They can be friendly. All right, so Jared, I believe as we like to do, everyone picks something that they'd like to discuss, and you had something in mind.
I did. So I've got this. If you've checked out any of the crypto news sites, you can see this report of Novogratz says Fidelity to shift retail to crypto soon, and that just reminded me of something because I've been in the crypto space for a while. I've gone to a lot of events, and up in here in New Hampshire, we've had a couple of digital crypto events, and I've always noticed at these events before. This was the first one I went to was 2017. And even back then, there were guys from Fidelity at these events hanging out. And I didn't get the impression at all that they were just like stuff suit business. Like these were part of this was, up here in New Hampshire, like there's a crypto culture. Like I can spend crypto it's not that unheard of at all to just commonly, use it as a medium of exchange up here. And Yeah, and I just wanted to point that out. Like, this doesn't surprise me at all because I've seen the guys from Fidelity, and I asked people around. They're like, "No, Fidelity's awesome. They've been supportive. They've been involved. Like, they're wise on crypto is the thing I'm pointing out." And to me, I'm usually the bear, usually, but to see this report and to see that it's coming, this tells me that they've been working in the background. Again, my pure, total personal speculation, and now they're bringing this up to the front, to where they've been making relationships, probably planning things out on their end. But it's very bullish for me to see an institution like Fidelity start to come out, directly to the market and bringing this stuff to in a retail kind of sense.
Yeah, I think you're seeing those kind of signs in a lot of industry right now. These aren't recent developments like you're referring to. Seeing them in events for years now. A lot of these big companies, banks, firms, funds, they've been active in the space, even to a small degree, for probably a couple cycles now. But yes, some of the having kind of a little bit of an uncertainty in the regulatory climate, I think, was probably what scared them off the most. And I do feel like towards the end of this year, we are coming to a headway on that, between the U.S. government's report on crypto that's due, I believe, in the next month to the White House, and from comments by the SEC. And then I forget the name of the other organizations, like CFTC, something like that. Between the two of them, they would regulate the different types of cryptos. So I think once you're probably going to see a lot happen in a short time frame once there's just a little bit more clarity.
I have a little bit of anecdotal story along those lines with institutional stuff. Oh, sorry, dog. Where I went to an event it was hosted at an art museum by Brown Advisory, who you've probably never heard of, but they are a completely private client investment firm with like $90 billion on assets under management. So they're just, holding rich people's money and investing it for them. And it was like a panel discussion, and there was my friend who's like an NFT degenerate, and there was Lisa.eth, who's part of the Aztec network. And who else? And they had up there their CIO, their chief investment officer for this $90 billion fund. And, it's really interesting to hear his perspective on kind of like institutional investment. And he made it clear that they are not investing in any cryptocurrency on behalf of their clients at this time, but like they're getting more and more of a push from their clients to do so. And the way he was talking about it, he explained clearly that in his mind, there's Bitcoin and then there's everything else. And I think that's kind of the narrative that they're pushing to their clients as well, I would presume. So I think that there's some demand from those people, and like the institutions they work with are starting to hear it from their clientele, as well.
It just makes no sense to have 0%, in my opinion, in my super biased opinion.
They do invest in startups. Like they do invest in startups in the cryptocurrency space, but they don't have any direct exposure on behalf of their clients to cryptocurrency.
That makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, we need to get those numbers up. Those are amateur numbers.
All in.
Hey, so actually, Jay Winterman, I don't know if this was meant to be your topic. I have a couple things from you, but I noticed recently that moons were on some exchanges, and that moons fairly mooned over the past week. What's going on there, sir? You are more read on to the RCC internal.
It's a long time coming. And they mooned a little bit. Not, they finally transitioned to quote unquote mainnet, which is Arbitrum Nova network, about a month ago. And since then, they, there was a few weeks, they pumped. So as soon as they, transitioned to mainnet, they were available on Sushi Swap as well as RCP Swap on Arbitrum Nova network. and they pumped right away to like 30 or 35 cents, and then they kind of faded down to 10 cents. And then just a few days ago, we had a request from MEXC to help with listing, and like they didn't know anything about it. Like they were going to list the old token on the Gnosis network, I think, or XDAI or whatever it's called now. And so we kind of helped them walk through the process, and we told them that we would have them on for an AMA. Of course, like whenever any exchange reaches out to you to list a coin, they're like, oh, so you're going to give us $100,000, right? And we were like, no, we're not going to do that, guys.
No.
So I mean, they understood. I think the MEXC people actually, I think, had the best understanding of the Reddit kind of dynamics of any of the exchanges that have come to us so far. Like Gate.io has been oblivious, but I think they've got it figured out now. So moons are now listed on MEXC, Gate.io, and I think they're either about to be or are listed on OKX as well.
Ooh.
So like we went from nothing to like 3 top 20 exchanges in a week. And the price pumped up to 20 cents or so, not even as high as the mainnet announcement, but the liquidity has gone way up. Like I never could have sold my moons even if I wanted to, just because there wasn't enough people buying to even sell half of them or a tenth of them maybe. But now, you know, if you look at the volume and on CoinGecko or whatever, which isn't even covering the centralized exchanges yet, like the trading volume has gone up into the millions of dollars per day, which isn't a ton for a cryptocurrency. But I mean, compared to, you know, previously it'd be like maybe $10,000 a day. So with all that being said, I don't want to ramble too long, but I think the most interesting part of it to me is how Reddit goes forward with this. Like obviously they just made the decision to move moons to mainnet and bricks, which are the Fortnite token, for our Fortnite VR. And it's like, you know, they have in their terms of service that moons are not tradable and you're not supposed to do anything off the site with them. But at the same time, like they must have known what was coming as soon as they switched it over to mainnet, and now here it is. So it'll be interesting to see if they really push forward and keep adding these tokens to more and more subreddits, or if they kind of just like let it chill for 3 to 6 months and see what happens, or maybe, you know, they have some legal designs that are approved by their lawyers and they're going to somehow lean into it more. But it'll be interesting to see where they go.
Yeah, something I haven't looked at is the supply on moons, and I wonder, you know, let's say it did proper moon to like a higher valuation. I wonder how that would change its utility within Reddit. You know, if it was worth more, would people find a way to be tipping like partial moons or something?
Maybe. I mean, there is partial moons. They have 18 decimal places. And, you know, we did, even before they got on mainnet, you know, one of the things that you can do with moons is buy your subreddit special membership. And we didn't figure out a way to tie it directly to price, but the more active the subreddit is, the less moons that each person gets per distribution. So we use kind of that number as a proxy, and we tie the cost of the subreddit membership to like the ratio of upvotes to moons. So it kind of acts as like a proxy for the price, or in some way. But yeah, I think the Reddit, like when you buy coins with moons, I think it's just a fixed amount, and they're not being, you know, their systems are not aware of the price in any way whatsoever, which is stupid. Like but they can't acknowledge it, you know, like their lawyers are like, no fucking way, you can't do that, right? So
yeah, that's interesting. That is like, people talk about utility all the time, and I'm biased, but that blows most of the utility cases I've heard out of the water, simply being able to buy your membership on a subreddit, because it's actually a utility.
Buy your membership, and the moons that you earn on the subreddit let you vote on the rules of the subreddit as well. So I mean, that's the kind of fundamental utility to them.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
That is cool. It's effectively a DAO, is what we're saying.
Yes, it's like a little kid DAO, and Reddit is the mommy, basically.
Little kid DAO. I like it. Interesting.
But if I'm understanding it right, it kind of allows, it's like an umbrella DAO with like micro DAOs, but still using the same token and like general structure.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know the specifics on umbrella DAO, but Reddit is the token issuer, and their design is to issue a one token per participating subreddit. And so right now there's only two subreddits. It's our cryptocurrency and our Fortnite VR. And so we have moons and they have bricks. And the idea is that like they'll add, awe will get like cats or whatever, or Pix will get like snaps or something.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you for the correction. That makes sense.
That's
cool.
Pretty cool.
Although it's a fun experiment, and it's like it's really getting real now, so it'll be fun to see how Reddit kind of walks the line between doing cool shit and not getting in trouble with the SEC.
Yeah, maybe we need to have Gary Gensler on for a little bit of an AMA.
That and would then be fun.
Press him to say that moons are a commodity.
I feel like Gary would definitely put moons in the security bag, but
you didn't hear that here.
They were never for sale, though, right? Can they be a security if they're never for sale?
They are for sale on the secondary market. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer.
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer either. Let's move along.
Yeah, I feel like Gary just he's walking through the grocery store. He sees a jug of milk. He's like, "That looks like a security to me." So, Mr. You had some news about Ethereum you wanted to discuss.
Oh, yeah. I thought this was really interesting, actually, that, we talk about innovation and the pace of innovation in crypto or DeFi, what have you. And, us being US based, I guess we have our biases a little bit there, right? But a lot of times we do think of it in terms of US innovation. And certainly it's a space that the US wants to continue a leadership stance on. And what I thought was really interesting was proof of the exact opposite happening, which is the central bank of Norway, right? The Norges Bank. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but the central bank of Norway has just launched their prototype for their CBDC. And their CBDC is actually built on a Ethereum-based chain. And so I thought that was really interesting because one of the things that they're talking about is, and they've been talking about this for some time, right? That they're pursuing CBDCs, they're researching it, they want to identify the right chain to use. And over the course of like 2 years since they announced it, which was a while ago, that they'd be testing out different things. So this is all like part of that test, right? But I thought what was really interesting was that they mentioned that a key requirement for the chain that they ultimately land on for their CBDC, their central bank digital currency, right, is the ability for it to be interoperable, right? And that makes total sense. Like, just like, if you're a central bank and you're servicing an entire nation and the nation's currency, you want to make sure that as many different users, and I'm not talking end users, I'm talking as many different financial participants, right, in the finance sector, can access the system, right? So interoperability makes sense. But when you see that they chose an Ethereum as kind of like the basis for their chain, that just tells me like, super bullish on Ethereum. But not as important because they're actually not building on Ethereum, right? But what it tells me is there's validation here for EVMs, right? Because this interoperability comes down to the Ethereum virtual machine compatibility, right? In order to continue to build functionality on a chain like Ethereum, you have to be EVM compatible, right? And there are a lot of other chains out there, L2s included, that do support EVM, Ethereum virtual machines. So what I see this as is like, hey, Norway is actually looking a little bit further ahead in their research and not just identifying their core chain, but also looking to leverage other ecosystems, right? Other EVM compatible ecosystems to, just basically add value to their CBDC ecosystem. For example, like, hey, maybe, the CBDC on the Ethereum based chain from Norway Central Bank acts as like a core settlement layer, but you're going to need a lot of other potential third parties to plug in, right? And to move money around essentially, right? And that may not necessarily have to be on just Ethereum or an Ethereum based chain. It could be on any of these EVM chains. So I thought that was really interesting. The news piece I saw didn't really talk to that point, but for me, just reading the tea leaves on that one, the interoperability requirement I think is really what's the word for it? It's real prescient, right? They're thinking ahead. So hat tip to Norway. Way to go on the innovation front. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about Norway going CBDC on an Ethereum-based chain?
Now, when you say interoperability that they were looking for, it sounds like they're kind of making a bet on what's going to be what's in terms of like general computational use case. Like if everyone's doing kind of an Ethereum kind of thing, that's what they're looking for.
I think it's more in terms of communication in order for the different parts of the ecosystem to be able to speak with each other, right? And then certainly be able to potentially, support cross-chain transactions.
Oh, okay. So very much like a Solidity / EVM situation in this case.
Right. Yeah. At least that's the way I'm reading this. I just want to
Okay.
get your guys' thoughts.
Gotcha. Interesting. I like it's like if you are going to make a bet on the what's the prevailing kind of standard at the moment, it is most likely Ethereum. But it just personally, my opinion, of course, I'm biased. Like it's a bit early unless they're still in the testing stage. And I apologize if I missed that. Are they like going live with this? Or are they still calling it like a
Oh no, it's a prototype. They're in testing. They're in the research.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Okay, gotcha. It just for something on nation state size level, it seems a little. It would be immature if they're like, nope, we're absolutely sure this is the way things are going and this is what we're building.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised though that they would go with either Ethereum or an EVM chain. I would be shocked if they didn't actually try to go with a layer 2. However, but EVM, EVM is. It is the most common standard. Almost the entire top 5, top 10 smart chains are EVM. Definitely the top few. BSC.
No, Solana's not. Yeah.
Yeah, Solana's not. Solana's like the
Cardano.
one out.
If Cardano counts as smart chain yet, I don't know, but they are not.
Yeah, they're somewhere in there. Market cap wise, they're definitely the second biggest after Ethereum. I haven't checked recently.
I think BSC is still number 2.
I think BSC was number 2 in terms of TVL. But yeah, either way, EVM to me, I guess if you're going to hedge your bets, you probably would just go with EVM because like you said, a lot of the ecosystem is already built on that and you have a lot of ongoing development support. Oh yeah, BNB.
And you have a lot of innovation, right? So you got a lot of a lot of innovation means a lot of players, and that opens up. If you need to lock your nation's currency to a chain, don't you want to make sure that it's as compatible with any? It's kind of like future proofing it, right? That it's as compatible as it can be with anything that might come up, down the line.
No, or they could go with Doge chain.
Shiba Rocket.
Or there's some new one I've seen. I honestly haven't looked it up. It's called like Keck chain. Have you guys seen this?
Interesting.
Remember when we predicted the rise of Catcoin? Then never brought it up again.
Yeah, I haven't seen a cat coin or cat chain. Keck chain. I have no idea what this thing is. Is like that is like a meme chain. It has Pepe as a logo. It's probably terrible.
And it'll probably go to like 3 in market cap.
That's the trick, right? So let me see. You put actually no. Let's one thing I want to try to make sure we do, which is hit some of the top posts from Reddit from the past week. And we should always give credit to the very top post, even if some of them are sometimes questionable in terms of content. But this one is from Party MSL, and it's really speaking to the psychology of the market. It's fascinating that now within the past year, we've had people buy Bitcoin at almost 70K and sell under 20K all in the past year. And actually, you're right. We're almost hitting that peak from a year ago when we had the peak in the second rally. I wonder what percent of traders bought the top and sold the bottom. And it's probably a lot more than want to admit it.
Oh yeah.
I think I was somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I just feel bad for it's one of those things where you just gotta you need to own your decision as an individual trader, right? And if that was your tolerance and you decide to capitulate, then I think that, hey, more power to you. There can't nobody tell you made the wrong decision, right? But yeah, it's got to be tough. It's got to be tough, man. Looking at maybe potentially a 70% loss, right? Something along those lines. And you got to wonder, are they ever folks like that did sell the bottom potentially? Not that I'm calling it or anything, but hey, are they ever going to be back? Are they?
Ooh, I love
forever,
this one.
Right?
Can I take this one? I love it. The answer is yes, of course they will. Because they entered, sorry, people out there, you're not alone. Don't feel stupid. You're not alone. We all did it. But, they entered emotionally. They didn't enter logically. And so I think to assume, oh, well, they're going to learn their lesson, that's kind of, it doesn't really add up. They didn't think about it when they bought the top and sold the bottom. If that's the case, I don't think they're going to think about it again. I think it's going to be emotionally driven, just like it was the first time.
Yeah, I think so. I think the people that are going to make it is if you're sitting here, of course, if you're on this podcast, you're going to make it. I mean, that's all but guaranteed. But if you actually go through this entire bear cycle and you invest a little bit here and there, and you take the time to maybe learn a little bit about reading charts and understanding the market, you do those things, and slowly, surely, the market will turn. You have now made yourself more educated and informed, and you're setting yourself up for success, because success doesn't happen overnight. It's the people on here that have been doing it for a long time. I can't imagine you guys probably, each of you probably spent thousands of hours, doing these very things, right?
Easy. What's helped me through my years and years, because with the exception of someone who's very lucky, we're all down from November, really. But what's really helped me through the years and to be able to not focus on the down is if you start viewing your portfolio, and this used to be commonplace, now it's probably unheard of, but if you start viewing your portfolio in Bitcoin, BTC value instead of USD value, it can really help you through these times. Obviously, it's not going to make everyone feel better, but I never look at the USD value of my portfolio because it makes me cry.
Tom, you're a crypto boomer. That's
like a boomer, baby.
I was, as the other resident boomer, I was just about to say, I can explicitly...
I understand that, but no, I was just going to chime in and say that there's got to be very few unlucky folks who bought above 65 and sold under 20. And just going back in time, how many way more people bought the top of the NASDAQ in 1999 or 2000? And it's not like those folks are like, oh, I'm never investing in tech stocks again, right? If it's really going to continue to grow and the market's going to continue to, grow worldwide, I think that most of those, I don't think I don't think there's going to be very many people swearing off of quote unquote investing for the rest of their lives.
Well, and I could personally attest to this, like what Tom's talking about. So, 'cause I lived it. Like, I remember 2016, like going, and I was dealing poker at the time, and like, you have like half-hour breaks, like every hour, every 2 hours, and like I'd go and be like little trading altcoins, on my phone. But then the whole time you're like, you make your plays, then you liquidate back to Bitcoin, and you're watching, everything in Bitcoin. But over the years, as you measure in terms of, for me, like Bitcoin probably most at the time, but in general, just like crypto, like I'm comparing, like how much crypto am I acquiring compared to the dollars I'm worried about. And yeah, absolutely. When you're counting, what's that?
You could you could look at it in like how many coins of whatever it is you like, because obviously
absolutely.
I like Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, you can look at don't get me wrong. Like I count the Bitcoins I have too, but like you can look at your Bitcoin value of your portfolio in general. And God, I remember at what time, just a tangent. I was up to 81 at Bitcoin way back when, but it did not stay that way.
Well, the reason I brought it up, I know it makes me a boomer, but the reason I brought it up is my portfolio is wrecked versus last year in November, but it's at an all-time high versus Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it can really help you smooth out the volatility, because dollars go up in Bitcoin value as Bitcoin goes down. I'm not going to get into it deeper than that.
Yeah. Well, in
Right.
investors
and
also.
I think this was like no, didn't we talk about this on one of our like first episodes? Was like
probably,
if we're all here to stack sats, and we're talking about ultimately a future where it becomes an actual, a currency, right? That's an actual medium of exchange, as Jared was saying at the top. Like that may be actually what matters in the super long term, because who cares how many dollars? If you're not using dollars to buy coffee down the line, you're using sats. All that matters is how many sats you're stacking, right?
Yeah, and
the smallest unit of value for Bitcoin.
I think the thing too to be looking at is, as you come to understand the market, and that there's always going to be a rotation through markets. Smart money doesn't just sit in one thing only and only ride that up and then sell and then wait. The money that's in altcoins, like we saw today, we were talking about that. Ethereum against Bitcoin dropping 10%. Bitcoin dominance, actually those candles are massive. It was a pretty big spike up. That's money flowing from altcoins into Bitcoin. And so considering altcoins have grossly outpaced Bitcoin this year, if you had been just sliding those profits over from time to time into Bitcoin, then you can continue that ride up when Bitcoin goes up. It's a smart way to do it.
Well, and just boomers are still here.
Yeah,
that's right. But like, kind of going back to the whole, folks that may have bought the top and they're way underwater now. I think it's about that time maybe where friendly little PSA reminder, right? Make sure you manage your risk. Make sure you're not investing more than you can afford to lose. Make sure that you're not over leveraged, right? Because for at least the way maybe some boomers might be looking at it is, you don't want to put anything up where you're using money that you need to pay rent with, right?
We'll make it.
And I think in the most recent cycle, like the bull cycle, like we saw that, right? We saw folks lose their mortgages. We saw people get completely wrecked, not just from a portfolio perspective, but from a life perspective. And that's a horrible place to be.
Hey, so a couple more Reddit posts, and then we'll move into the Q&A.
Can I do a topic?
Sure.
I don't have too much more time. So there is something I wanted to say. I made a video about this on YouTube. By the way, follow me on YouTube at Tom Crown. I made a video on it, but with the upcoming Ethereum merge, people kind of get numb to hearing the not your keys, not your coins thing. But I want to just beg people to consider this is, if you have Ethereum that isn't locked up because you can't move it, and I have a little bit of Ethereum on exchange because I'm crossing my fingers for a nice rally into this merge, maybe get some sweet sells off. But if you have Ethereum that isn't being used for something on exchange, I really hope all of you consider withdrawing it to a private wallet, because as the merge happens, in 2 days, we're going to see the chain split. We're going to see miners. There's going to be miners that are still mining. They're going to be mining a chain. They're going to have the proof of stake chain. And we saw this in 2017 with Bitcoin when we had the hash wars. You are at the mercy of the exchange. If are they going to credit you the coins that fork? When are they going to do it? Which is the most important part. They might do it after they don't have value. But if you have your Ethereum in your wallet and your private keys in your hand, you're going to get any resulting chain, meaning any kind of, people like to say free coins. They're not free coins, but any merged coins, you'll have them. If they're on Coinbase, you might never get them, or you might get them long after they're worth anything. So that was
here. No, that is great advice.
No one's talking about it.
That is ideal. I worked at Coinbase, so I've seen these things happen.
Bravo.
And it's a nightmare. Like, even if the exchanges want to give you their tokens or give you the tokens and things like that, it's a nightmare for them on the back end to handle these things. So that is wonderful advice, and absolutely, just to throw it out there, people may not be surprised with me all the time, but don't share your seed phrase with anyone. Whatever you're doing, whatever wallet, learn what you're doing. It is not impossible to do. This is easy stuff to do. It's just be diligent, be careful with what you're doing, and get some good research from a good source.
There's no reason to ever give anyone your seed phrase ever, period.
Yes,
doesn't matter what they say. There's literally no reason.
Well, and I know it sounds like we shouldn't have to say that, but I've worked support in crypto long enough to know that I'm just gonna have to say that for the rest of my life. I've resigned that.
I would say maybe you should give your wife your seed phrase. Maybe
she's a scammer. Your wife is
just an option.
if and only if she understands not to give it to anyone else.
True.
Fair. Yeah, that's a good point.
And there are a lot of great ways. There's a lot of free help and resources out there that people will tell you really great ways to handle this stuff for backing up your seed phrase on physical mediums and things like that. Jameson Lopp is a great person for that. He's a Bitcoin OG, but he'll tell you some great ways to back up your seed phrase. He's done a lot of research on that. But yeah, wonderful point, Tom Crown.
No one's talking about it. I don't understand. I think I'm the only person that made a video about it, and it got a few thousand views. So there's but no one else. Everyone else is talking about it.
I think that's evidence that there's not a lot of people around who remember getting free money when Bitcoin Cash happened. Probably.
I was working at Coinbase when that happened, and I remember.
And people got screwed over with their Bitcoin on Coinbase because it took them forever. It wasn't until January that they finally gave people their BCH. Right?
And what about ETC? What about Ethereum Classic? We didn't get that for how long? Yeah. Years.
I've worked on the inside. I've seen this happen. You absolutely if you want to have that quote unquote those free coins. Oh yeah, and I'm not a tax accountant. This isn't tax advice, but from my naive understanding, though I've lived it practically, those quote unquote free coins come with a zero cost basis, and they are income. So just a heads up there.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some interesting things with the fork that we haven't even thought about. But yeah, I would just be very careful about anything you do this week, either on the proof of work chain or the proof of stake.
I apologize to interrupt you, Poppy, but on that same note, I don't know if there's any replay protections or things like that that's being done, but I know with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, you could have situations where people could send Bitcoin Cash to a Bitcoin address that they didn't control. There's people were confused about that. I don't know if Ethereum's done anything to mitigate those problems or the possibility of that problem. So understand that even though you will have technically two different chains.
I think it should be impossible because they can't use the same chain ID, which is part of the signature. But yeah, always be careful and wait. You want to have control of your keys so that you can do things as early as you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But I would definitely advise waiting until you see a kind of normal, there's at least a few people ahead of you and you see people talking about it, reputable people talking about it on Twitter or Reddit or whatever before you start moving things around yourself.
And it's
Great advice
always
for
not a
everything.
bad idea to send a test transaction, send a little amount you don't care about, just to test your theory. Like, this is, you're dealing with real money. This is brand new technology and stuff going on. Send a little, if you just send a little bit of crypto first, and then see if like everything worked like you expected and you still control it at the end of the day. Because we've seen that. I've seen that happen so many times, of people sending the wrong crypto, or the right crypto to the wrong address and losing access to it, because you like, I can send the Bitcoin Cash to a Bitcoin address I don't
I
own,
remember
but
that
then
nightmare.
it caused so
Dude,
many
it's such a
nightmares.
nightmare. Like, it was a
Yeah.
huge deal, like really a big deal. You'd send the Bitcoin to a Bitcoin Cash address, and that's like maybe recoverable, but maybe not. And I don't remember the details. I think the
Such a
overall is
nightmare.
it's gonna be complicated, and when it's complicated, you want to be the one who gets to decide what's going on. Not like you said, you worked for Coinbase. They've come a long way, I'd say, in these years, but it's not reasonable to to expect them to be on the same level that you can be in real time.
Well, and why take the risk when you can
Exactly.
be certain? I understand that depending on how comfortable you are with this, there may be a risk in trying to do such a thing. You make that decision for yourself, but there are a lot of genuine people that will help out. Of course, there's a lot of scammers. They're going to be willing to help you out too. So be cautious of that. But do your own research. Yeah, do your own research, and find some good, honest sources, and it's worth it, in my opinion. I'll be doing that.
I'm going through. Actually, that was great advice, by the way, Tom. I appreciate that. I think this week the Ethereum merge is going to be spicy. Is probably not doing it justice. It's going to be very interesting to see how that goes and how markets respond to it. Because like you, I also am holding some Ethereum and riding this out, waiting to see. I'm not ready to sell yet. I've seen some folks have sold. I may regret that, but we'll see. So let's go ahead and move into the Q&A. Let's see. First one. Someone's actually asking that question. Did any of you dollar cost average in over the recent months? Are you still buying now or just holding? I would say for myself, yes, I did DCAN. Excuse me. Mostly into Ethereum, but also some other things. And I'm still holding, but we are kind of at a range here where I might consider taking some profit. I really want to see how this week plays out. How about you guys?
Well, I do staking, so I regularly, technically, dollar cost averaging. It's making an investment into Tezos, and so that's what I've regularly done. And right now, I'm sitting on that, but also for the first time in a long time, putting some Bitcoin away.
Yeah, I've never really been a DCA person, but I picked up some Bitcoin in June at 18 and 19.5. And I picked up a bag of like ETH killers around the same time. And I'm just sitting on them. Usually whenever I buy anything, I plan on holding it for at least a year.
ETH killers, sir. You trying to kill my bags?
Yes. I'm already exposed enough to ETH, so I picked up like Solana, Cardano, Polygon, Avalanche, I think Cosmos, just a whole bag of them.
Yeah, I think those are all fair targets. Things I'm also interested in.
I already have Tezos, by the way, Jared. I do have some Tezos.
Oh, nice. Thank you. That's all right. I don't need to shill it too much. We got cool stuff coming. We'll come to you.
Wow, this is a lot of comments today. Thanks for all the participation, even though a lot of it's unrelated. Let's see. Yeah, when will Bitcoin go to 100K? Not soon enough.
Well, I'm convinced that the more it's like obvious, the more it'll be bigger, better, smarter players will take advantage of that before people not quite as smart as me are able to act on it. I resign myself that, we'll see things like that in the future. Am I going to be able to time the market personally? Probably not super accurately. Not like better traders will be able to do.
I do see a comment about Matic or Polygon. I did see that recent news with Starbucks now using Polygon, and of course, say that Disney news maybe a week or two ago. I do think it's worth noting that there's a lot going on with those guys. Definitely keep an eye on them. I'm not saying invest in them, but you definitely can't say Polygon's not trying to go somewhere.
I think they're kind of a neat case because they've been so successful in securing these like really, top tier partnerships, right? Like that was such a meme in 2017 or 2018, like, oh, my ICO shit token's having a partnership with McDonald's or whatever, right? And Polygon's like doing it for real, like with Disney and Starbucks, and they're not getting a huge amount of. They had a pump like closer on the Disney thing where they went up by 100% or something, but they don't even have like a long-term solution. They're just like, whatever, we're paying a whole bunch of like layer 2 wizards and we'll figure it out eventually. It's like right now it's just like a totally centralized side chain, and it's like we'll figure it out,
it is
after we raise $1 billion or whatever.
I put it up there with Solana. They both have very strong narratives. They have a very strong community, and each of them also has their flaws, including that centralization challenge. But that's just kind of where the technology is right now. It's hard for something like Polygon, from what I'm not an engineer, from what I understand though, in the current state, it's hard to decentralize that kind of scaling. So it's going to take some time. Here's a good question. I see this a lot on social media. So what are your thoughts on a service like ENS, which for those who don't know, it's Ethereum name service. It's like when you see someone that's like poppy.eth, and behind that poppy.eth can be a wallet address or a contract address or some other information. Do you think people will adopt the addresses with wallets like DNS? And DNS is what the internet uses for like google.com. That's basically google.com points to an IP address. Do you think they'll adopt those for convenience, perhaps mitigating some risk mistyping? I do think, this is my opinion, I think as a novelty, it's very cute. People do like to get those ENS domains. I do think there's definite utility in making it easier for people to send transactions, because instead of, say, sending it to your massive, wallet address, you could say, hey, just send me a Bitcoin to my, poppy.eth. Okay, obviously I can send Bitcoin there. Wrap Bitcoin, how about that? But you can
set a Bitcoin address on your ENS, like on
their
portal.
That's
and
cool.
Doge, and maybe Litecoin. I don't know. There's a few of them though.
So the thing I don't get, maybe some of you guys can explain to me. I see these guys talking like they're 3-digit, 4-digit, 5-digit ENS. These guys like shilling like positive Walmart's going to buy Walmart.eth. I'm not sold on it, to be honest. I'm not seeing that happening, and I really don't get the numbers one. Like, why are people excited to pay like $1 million for 456.eth?
Well, now 456.eth, I can understand that because it's easy to remember. It's low hanging fruit. Just to, get association with yourself or whatever you're doing. It's like, hey, how can I get in touch with you? 456.eth. How do you forget that?
True.
I think there is some. I think a lot of it, like there's some utility, like Jared mentioned, but I do think that a lot of it is just like all of the PFP NFT traders have like, they're looking for somewhere to go, and that's kind of like the place where they've all landed, and they're trading ENS names back and forth amongst each other. But I was just gonna say that they're not the only game in town. I was buying domains on Namecheap just a day or two ago.
Yep.
And like Namecheap has actual integration for buying domains on the Handshake network, which is like they're like basically like the next evolution of Namecoin, but it's another whole decentralized domain name system.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
I was, yeah, I mean, I know about Handshake, but I don't think most people do. And I was just shocked to see that it's like a tab on when you're searching for domains. There's like normal domains, and then they have a little tab for Handshake. You can just click over and
I had seen
buy
something
one on
about
there.
Handshake months ago, but I didn't look into it in too much detail. I didn't know. Does it some of the same people from the Namecoin project?
No, I don't think so. It's actually funded in part by the guy who bought the Freenode IRC network and killed it. So I'm not a big fan of it just for that reason alone. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, they've been in development for a long time. I think the main Namecoin dev like died, and the project kind of died with him. But the Handshake project has been around forever, and they launched a couple of years ago, and I believe it's a proof of work network. And then there's also unstoppable domains that run as well as
well, and what you're going to see too is every project is going to have their own, domain thing. I'm with Poppy that this is going to be a novelty within the crypto world for the short term. Is something going to hold out, come rise above the top to where it's the big deal? Who knows? The next 3 to 4 though, I think it's it's like an NFT kind of novelty. Every project's going to have their own domains eventually. Tezos has it. Cardano's gonna have it if they don't already. Avalanche. It's just it's a natural evolution for building community within your coin, because if you're part of this community, if you're part of whatever project community, having your domain name is a way of like signaling like, yeah, I'm serious, I'm part of this community.
Isn't this like what Namecoin was trying to do for Bitcoin?
Yeah, Namecoin was the very first. It was actually the very first altcoin ever. And it was launched, like, I think it was like Satoshi mentioned it as like, you could launch a coin to do this. And then somebody launched it in like 2011 or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's an old honored boomer project.
But I never hear about it anymore. It's one of those things you just don't hear about much in Bitcoin space. Anything besides Bitcoin. I think
it is still mined, like, because it was merge mined with Bitcoin, if you know what that means. And it's still mined, so it must trade on some exchange or something. But yeah, it's basically like a zombie project, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Dopal made a great point, and I agree with him. He's saying that it's a status to have a low number ENS as like your name on social media, kind of like having a Bored Ape or a Punk as a profile picture. I could definitely see that because it takes money to buy them. I just don't know who these people are that have all this money to throw around on, like, I mean, unless it was, I mean, I guess I could get some of these, but man, I did something wrong. This cycle, guys. I should be buying random numbers. All right. Looking through the questions. One thing I saw someone mention something about NFTs, and I was just thinking, so I don't know if anyone's into Doodles. It's a fairly large NFT project, but we are entering the second month without them posting anything on Twitter. It's a great mystery. It's kind of weird when, like, I guess you could say maybe it's like a top 5, maybe top 10, somewhere in there, like NFT project, and is radio silent on social media.
Well, don't all of these projects have like big communities following, like a Discord server or something like that?
Almost all of them, yeah. So this year after Goblin Town, there's been a new meta where people are like, no roadmap, no Discord, no anything. And so some of these newer ones don't really have that type of community presence on stuff on platforms, but most of them do. Yeah. Especially
when they don't. Oh, I apologize. When they don't do the community presence, what are they? Are they more or less successful in general, in your opinion?
Other than Goblin Town, I think they're less successful. Goblin Town was kind of the first to really popularize that. I'm sure there were others before them, but because they're kind of like the anti-meta. I mean, the whole thing was, hey, the market's in Goblin Town, slang for bear market. So their whole thing was like going against the grain of, all the other hype projects from the past year. Free mint, no Discord, yada, yada.
I
it
love the
worked.
memetics of the NFT world. It's beautiful.
It worked well for them, yeah. But then there was, dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of, projects that followed that tried the same thing. 99% of them are already, dead. So as tends to happen, just like the billion Bored Ape clones out there and the billion, punk projects on every single chain. Mr. probably got off, but his profile picture is a DOS punk from Tezos that I gave him. And I thought it was a clever derivative that for the younger kids, they don't even know what DOS is, but it's like an old computer system. But yeah, I mean, there must be dozens of punk projects on every single chain. All right, let me see. I think this will be the last question. Do you think crypto winners are good for Alstein, pardon the language, shitcoins? I think so. This person, Toasted Terps, said he or she thinks so because they must be bad. And okay.
You could say poo pennies.
Poo pennies. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer there. Technically, these types of bear markets, they're gonna shake the weak projects. Same with the stock market, or same publicly traded companies. If they're struggling to perform, their value goes down, their investors abandon them. Those. Same thing with crypto. If you're an underperformer, now. I do think in crypto, because it's such a crowded space and because there's light regulation and a lot of folks perhaps invest with even less. What's the polite way of saying just profit at all cost, right? It can be pretty brutal. You can have good projects that just kind of fail to launch because of reasons, maybe they did all the right things, but the timing was wrong, or maybe the marketing was a little off.
Yep. Fail to moon. There could be jurisdiction issues. There can be internal stuff. You can have a person significant to the project that, something happens with them, which, if a project is dependent on a person, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
So for me, do cryptos winner oust the shit? There's part of me that's like, sure, there's certain things that are gone that you're never going to hear of again. Battlecoin, no one remembers that. But then again, there's also things that's like, well, Doge is still here, like getting into the top 5, things like that here and there, and just blowing up. It's so I'm really of two minds on this. I'm like, yeah, you're gonna see some weaker projects leave, but especially if a project has ever mooned, it made some people life-changingly rich, in which case they're not going to forget that. They're going to associate that positive experience with whatever that shitcoin was, and they might circle back to bring it back to life, and have the funds to do it. So I don't know if I'm certain, because especially with like the winter cycle, you have a project that, if it does moon for whatever reason, makes you rich, and then it goes to 1/1000th of what it used to be, and someone comes in, they can come back and say, like, yeah, I can buy this up and take over the project myself. And we've seen that happen before, where community members cycled back and reinvigorated projects. So in one sense, yeah, you see projects change, you see some churn, but we've also seen projects we thought we'd never hear from before come back to life.
Some of them. But if you look at a top 10 list, cycle by cycle, very few have lasted the test of time. One of those that's very stubborn and sticky, worth giving a shout out to, is Litecoin. Yeah. It's not the first, but it's one of the first altcoin projects, and probably the only one from that era still kicking around.
Well said. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of their thing, their shtick, their angle. 100% uptime for all those years. It's not a sexy coin, but it gets the job done.
I mean, it's number 22 amongst thousands upon thousands of projects. There's something to be said.
I was trying to think of another example from that long ago, and I don't think there's anything else from 2012 that really is still alive. But the crazy thing is, Dogecoin launched in the end of 2013, and then after a couple of years, they're like, nobody really wants to mine Dogecoin, and we're going to get 51% attacked by Litecoin miners because they shared the same, proof of work hashing algorithm. So Dogecoin decided to merge mine with Litecoin, which means like they were using Litecoin's network as the security for Dogecoin, basically. And then it's like 7 years after that or whatever, 6 years, all of a sudden Dogecoin gets like tweeted by Elon, and now it's been more valuable than Litecoin for the past 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just funny.
The space is funny like that. True. It's also one of the top posts this week actually on Reddit was complaining. I think it was like the second or third most popular, complaining about Elon shilling Dogecoin. So it has permeated popular culture at this point. I mean, even just like average people in my life that have no interest in crypto otherwise. Like I remember one of my old bosses last year was like, "Man, I made so much money on Dogecoin, but I didn't put any money to the side for taxes, and now I'm screwed." And I'm like, this is the last person I expected to be into crypto.
I thought Elon's tweeting that. Like, I'm not salty at him at all about it. I think it's a way of like pointing. It's a gesture kind of thing. This is how ridiculous the market is, and I'm not salty on the market either for that. It's just people, make their calls, do whatever you want to do, but you can't take it too seriously, and you can't predict it too much because it's that influenceable that Elon can open his mouth, and now Dogecoin is twice what Litecoin was.
Yeah, I love Dogecoin, and if you hate Dogecoin, then you're just a Scrooge, and you probably hate
not
Christmas.
That I hate it. It's not that I hate it. It's just like it doesn't do anything, and it's so.
But you know what it is? It does the exact same thing as Bitcoin. It is Bitcoin basically, and so I think it's just an expression of freedom, and you can be free to make jokes and do fun things, and that's part of the freedom that cryptocurrency gives people.
Fair. And Doge has done a master job, the community, at playing the meme game and the community building game. So hats off to that. That is quite true.
I still like Bananos better.
Bananos.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard.
I hate Banano. Sorry.
Oh
I'm
my
a
gosh.
Scrooge.
Oh my gosh.
I never heard or understood much about Nano. Like the idea seemed kind of novel in the sense of like you do the work yourself to pay for the transaction.
Yeah,
so
I like Nano. I think Nano is kind of neat, but I think Banano is a scam because the devs kept like 80% of all the coins or something, and then they're like, "Oh, we promise we'll distribute them according to whoever does some whatever tasks." I don't know, but that's not cryptocurrency. That's like database money.
That database money.
I love it. I love the community. But for me, I think just the community itself is very friendly, very open and welcoming to new investors. Kind of like how I used to consider Doge, and Doge to a degree still is that way, but a lot of money and a lot of profits has a way of changing people, I think. And or at least changing how you view, the coins in your wallet. But the one thing that is cool about Nano or Banano or any of those is the absurd speed at which it can transact. I would say for just fun, if anyone's curious, get some Nano. It's probably not much anymore, some Banano, and try it out. Put two phones next to each other. Do it on public like 4G and see how insanely fast. I mean, I remember when I tried it the first time, I hit the button. My finger hadn't even left the screen on that first phone, and it was already in the wallet in the second one. And with that, we killed the chat. Clearly, you gentlemen are not Bananas fans.
No, I gotta jump anyway, but thank you guys for having me on. It was fun. I'll try and get on more often.
But no,
Yeah.
I've transacted Banano, and it is cool to see it end up from one place to another. And I forget and after that I started researching Nano, and I forget what it was about it that I was like, oh yeah, there's this security problem that really hasn't been solved or addressed or answered.
That's something they haven't. I don't think that they've fixed, which makes it kind of unusable. Is like it's easy to just hold the network or chain hostage,
something like that. Yeah.
Excuse
me. I was
me.
like, okay, this is cool for like a meme kind of low level fun thing. All right. But like if I'm expecting it to go like gangbusters or like, big business to business trade, I'm like, you need to solve that problem, brother.
Yeah. If that would, I forget the nature of the exact issue, but until that's solved, I mean, there's a reason that Nano's really struggled to remain relevant after 2020. So still cool ideas, but yeah, if I was going to invest in one right now, it would probably be Doge.
Well, and we're going to see things like those kinds of user experience things are going to get better and better because chains have been building like foundational fundamental things and less focusing on the like polished big deal user experience. And we're now starting to see, or I'm starting to notice in the industry, that kind of stuff get focused on and addressed to where you're going to see things like competing chains that you have really fast transactions and that kind of stuff. And maybe it's on an L2, maybe it's something like that, but you're going to see that more and more that happy user interface, happy user experience. It's coming to crypto, my friends, and it's going to help the mainstream.
That's going to be a game changer. Those kind of things, simplifying the wallet experience, simplifying the transfer of money, of funds, and that speed. I mean, these are all ways that we can outperform traditional financial services.
Even I've now, seen that.
With my bank's improvements, it's still a lot more cumbersome and a lot more of a pain to transfer money from, say, my account to the wife's account than it would be for me to just hop on and send her, some Doge or some Litecoin or some whatever.
God, yeah. I remember I was buying a piece of property, and the real estate agent, I was like, I'd prefer to settle in Bitcoin if I can, if you don't mind figuring that out. And of course they wouldn't. She's like, out of curiosity, why would you want to do that? I'm like, I've used both institutions, I've used wires and I've used crypto, and I trust the crypto way more to not get screwed up.
True, as long as you don't typo on the address.
Indeed.
Well, I think it's just you and me, and I think it's time to wrap up. This has been a fun discussion. I liked having everyone on board this week. Hopefully we can get a big turnout next time. So thank you, Jared, for sticking around the whole time, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. And to everyone else, hope you have a safe week trading. Remember, volatility is probably incoming between the CPI, the Ethereum merge, and then next week, the FOMC. So trade safely. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. Love you, everyone. Have a great week. L
everyone. Have a great week.